Hello Bishes, welcome back to my channel. I hope you all had a great holiday and a happy new year and that you are all well rested by now. I certainly took the time off from posting on social media, but now I'm back to business and you might have noticed that things look a little bit different here. I am trying out a new style of Draw With Me's where I'm trying to make use of the time lapses that are recorded on Procreate. So let's see how this goes. I'm trying to be a little bit more efficient this year because there's a lot going on my plate, and I want to be able to make sure that I'm able to sustain myself throughout the various projects I have, bestowed upon myself. So yeah, so in case if you're wondering what I'm drawing right now, it's basically a new Instagram comic that I will be posting on my Instagram. So by the time that this video is out, the post on Instagram is already out, so check it out if you want to read the full thing. But other than that, I figured that today I would be talking about my experience going through the hiatus periods of, working in the animation industry, as I still currently am in one right now as we speak. Who knows, by the time this video is posted, things might be different, things might have progressed. But I hope that I'm not the only one who feels anxious during times of uncertainty, and that might be another reason why some people are still hesitant about working in an art career or the animation industry, is because a lot of things tend to be project-based, and there will be moments in time that you're unemployed or don't have a project and you're kind of out back there to fend for yourself, while most people traditionally just kind of work a linear job for many years of their life. So yeah, it's gonna be a little bit different, but I also feel like our generation is a little bit more flexible and open to job hunting and just jumping from job to job nowadays. So this might not be that new of a topic to some people, but if you are, a student that is about to start a job or job hunting or thinking about your career, this might be something that is helpful to you. So right now in the year of 2022, I am approaching my 4th year of working in animation, but if I do not land a job at any point this year, then let's keep it at 3 years working in the industry. So I would say that graduating was the hardest part about job hunting, especially when you don't know anybody or have any connections, and your internships weren't really related to the specific field you want to work in. For example, I really wanted to be in story, but all the internships I ever got were not story related, so I felt like I had to constantly prove myself that, hey, I can be a storyboard revisionist, I can be a storyboard artist, and it took a lot of rejections to finally land on my first story revisionist job. But I would say that what is even harder about it is just that you don't have any connections or anyone looking out for you other than your own classmates who are also in the same boat of not knowing anyone. So I would say right now, after I've worked a few projects, this moment of hiatus is nowhere near as emotionally or mentally painful as when I initially graduated. So if you are someone who has already, worked a few years in the industry and have some good connections, you are definitely in a better place than I was when I first graduated. But if you first graduated and you are feeling that anxiety of not being able to land on your first job, don't worry. I understand how you feel completely, and there will be a time where that time period comes to an end as long as you keep trying, keep applying, and don't give up. But you might be wondering what it's like exactly during that transition of rolling off a show and then having a time period of not knowing what to do until someone else summons you or something like that. So from my personal experience, I've mainly been on streaming platform shows and films, especially for like Netflix, and that type of experience is going to be a lot different from someone who is working at a feature animation studio like Disney or DreamWorks or Pixar. I don't know what it's like to work full-time there because I haven't worked there other than interning, so that experience might be a lot different. Your projects might have a lot longer of a timeline and you might be there for a lot more than just 2 years, who knows. But personally, on these streaming platform projects so far, it's kind of just been like a 1 to 2 year type of gig. At most, I've been on a project for around 2 years, but then afterwards, it's always like, okay, if the show doesn't get another season, then you're kind of back on your own to find something else. But it's not as bad, again, as being a newly graduated student. Usually, you will know your end date before you end on the project, and when your end date kind of comes around, someone usually will reach out to you and talk to you about, future steps, next steps, what do you want to do with your future, and see if there's another project in the future at this studio that might be a good fit for you. But the thing is that sometimes, even if there is a project that is looking for artists at the studio that you're working at, if you're not a good fit for that show, they still might not hire you. So it's sometimes a little bit shitty, because let's say sometimes artists are going to still be in need of jobs. They still need to get paid and live a life. Like, if an artist is capable of drawing in many different styles, I think that studios should consider this artist, even if they're not like stereotypically fitting what the show is looking for. But I don't know, that is, a different conversation for another time. But the sad reality is that sometimes a studio that you're working at will still have a project lined up, but they still might not choose you for it and be like, okay, bye, you're on your own. So what happens next? You're out back into the open wild and you're just waiting for someone to get you. And that's when I feel like I resist that aspect. After that first year of just job hunting and not being able to land on anything but rejection letters, I feel like I was so afraid to ever get back to that state of mind, because during that time, I just was not doing that well mentally and emotionally, and I really didn't want the next time I was unemployed to go back to that mental state. So I have just kind of built this thing for myself, whether it be on my Instagram or my online Etsy shops, Patreons, or just personal projects like my graphic novel. These are things that I've just kind of been slowly developing over the course of the past few years while I was still working at these jobs, was because I wanted to have some cushion for the times that I'm not employed traditionally, but at least I still have something going for myself in the background. So for example, my book was something that I was never really ever planning to do. I never really envisioned myself getting into the publishing industry, but after somebody reached out to me after seeing my comics on Instagram and told me that, hey, this would be like a project that you would be paid for and stuff like that, I'd be like, you know what, why not? I would get a project of my own being created, the timeline is flexible, and it can be a source of income for the times that I don't have a job. So after I ended my most recent job, that's kind of how I've been financially supporting myself, mainly was through my publishing project. And even though that job is not gonna be paying me for the rest of time like a regular job, it at least buys me some time to, focus on my own project, search and job hunt, and maybe land on a job that I actually would like to be on, instead of just choosing one because I had no other choice, but the project is something I didn't really like. So I feel really thankful for my past self for making the choice to choose, a side project to just work on, during my off hours or over the weekends. And the good thing about it is that it's a personal project. It's my story. It's something that I can work on. So I don't feel like, I'm continuously working for somebody else. So this has been my way of being able to support myself for a certain amount of time. But then again, it's just a certain amount of time. The publishing industry is not paying me consistently. They're paying me in just chunks of what I get accomplished, and I had to calculate that out and figure out, okay, what they're going to be paying me for finishing the line art or the sketches will kind of be like as if I worked in the animation industry for, 3 months or so. So that buys me 3 months of time to just work on my book and just job hunt and just see what is going on. But also because it was the holidays recently, I knew that there wasn't going to be much happening and people will be in and out of the office or whatever. So what is the point of wasting so much energy trying to get people to hire me when I know they all won't be even mentally there, and I also won't be mentally there because I'll be preoccupied by my book and like the holidays, blah blah blah. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was kind of a ramble, but I did want to provide just one example of just, you know, what one artist did during her hiatus period and how she just lived throughout, you know, 3 months of no animation job. And that's kind of just what I did. But again, there's kind of a deadline or a time limit to how much I can just keep going without a consistent form of pay. So I am back on the job hunt now, and that experience is, again, still a lot easier than before. I feel like because I know people from previous jobs, you're going to eventually talk to them again and be like, hey, how's life going? And then eventually you will have to mention that you're job hunting or you're out there searching for a new gig. And that person will probably be like, oh, okay. You know, I'll look out for you, keep an eye out for things, and maybe even ask people at my own studio if they're looking for anyone. And that's honestly kind of just how it works. A lot of it is through word of mouth, and that can be a good or bad thing to some people because, you know, if you have good ties, you might be more likely to land on a job than someone who just applies through an application. And I feel like that's just a sad truth that I also learned. I've submitted so many applications in my life that just kind of went into a black void, but all the times that somebody did reach out to me was usually because they knew me from someone else or someone else mentioned me to them. So yeah, make friends and not enemies when you're at work. So even though I mentioned that job hunting when you're in between jobs and have already had previous experiences is a lot easier than being a newly graduated student, there are still things about it that kind of sucks. So for example, I feel like working in a linear path and, you know, working up the ladder is not something that always happens to everyone. For example, I just finished an assistant directing gig, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna be continuing on that directing path in the future, especially since I left a studio that knew me for that role. But now I'm entering back into the world of other studios who don't really know who the fuck I am and are probably like, well, we don't know you, so you might have to start out as a storyboard artist again because we don't know what it's like for you to be an assistant director or director. And in a way, I'm actually okay with that because I feel like for me personally, there are things that I really liked about directing, but there are things that I also just really liked about being a storyboard artist. And seeing that this year is going to be very turbulent for me in terms of personal projects, publishing my graphic novel, I really don't know how the fuck I am going to balance all that if I took on a greater responsibility. So in a way, I would be totally okay with just continuing being a storyboard artist. But if a good opportunity arises for a project that I feel like would suit me as, you know, a director, I would be open to that as well. But I won't, you know, just reject jobs just because they're not what I want. I have to be realistic and be like, girl, you still gotta feed yourself and pay your mortgage. So in a way, it's like you're gonna kind of constantly have to reprove yourself to people over and over again, unless if it's the same studio that you've worked with before that is just rehiring you back. That is the one struggle that I would say for me personally during these hiatus periods, is just knowing that it's like going on a first date all over again. You're gonna have to really put your best foot forward all the time, when sometimes it's just like, I just want someone to love me for who I am, you know? After taking a few months of a break away from working in animation, I am now back into the job hunting world, just like any other artist in between jobs. So I had to redo my portfolio in the sense that I just wanted to update it and make sure that it's up to what I feel like best represents me, because the thing that's kind of annoying is when you just roll off a project, you can't really just show what you did on that project so publicly to people. So you have to include a password protected portion of your portfolio for where you're going to show your professional work, especially for things that haven't even been released yet. So yeah, that's something that you should probably know that I didn't even know when I was still a student. In terms of going through interviews and stuff, I feel like once you've worked a few years and had some experiences under your belt, it is so much easier to get through interviews, to just have things you can actually talk about, and you kind of know what pay way you've been being paid before, so you know what to say when people are asking for your rate. And things just, are better with time. When you gain more experience, things are just a lot smoother than they were before. But again, it's just not perfect. It's just a little bit easier than before. And then you just pretty much rinse and repeat. You work your job, and then a few months or a year or two later, it's over, and we'll just be back here watching this video together. So yeah, to be honest, it does get very emotionally draining to go through this process so many times in life, but I will say that I feel like I did grow a lot and learned a lot from these experiences. And just so you know, you can always negotiate for a higher pay whenever you're hopping onto a new job, so that's kind of one perk of it. But it's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people prefer just working at one place for a long time for that stability, which is totally understandable. And in that case, maybe working at a feature studio might be more up your alley. But also something that other artists do is that they have other things going on in the background. They have their own personal side business or side hustle, in which I've made videos about that before, that they can use as a cushion for, in case if they're not getting consistent pay at a certain time, at least they have something to fall back on for a certain amount of time. And that's why I work on my graphic novel or do these random side projects on the side and make these YouTube videos. So we'll see where my future goes, and maybe I will have a job or not by the time this video is uploaded. Anyway, that was pretty much all I wanted to talk about in terms of what it's like getting through a hiatus period. I know this comic pretty much has nothing to do with that, but in a way, I feel like I have been kind of burnt out and just really tired of art and stuff last year, and I felt like I really needed the break towards the end of last year, where I went traveling, took a break from the industry, and was able to rekindle my love for art and just think about how this was something my younger self wanted. And even if I don't land on a job that is absolutely perfect and what I want, just think about how this is still something that your younger self couldn't even imagine that you would be doing. But yeah. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you all in the next one. I hope you like this new type of video because it really helps me with my schedule. So yeah. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. So peace out and stay wholesome, bitches.